Good morning and welcome to the Totally Investor presentation. Throughout this recorded presentation, investors will be in listen-only mode. Questions are encouraged and can be submitted at any time using the Q&A tab situated on the right-hand corner of your screen. Please simply type in your question at any time and press send. The company may not be in a position to answer every question it receives during today's meeting. However, the company will review all questions submitted today and publish responses where it's appropriate to do so. Before we begin, we would like to submit the following poll, and as usual, I'm sure the company will be most grateful in your activity. And I'd now like to hand over to Lisa Barter, CFO, and Wendy Lawrence, CEO from Totally PLC. Good morning.
Good morning, and thank you for that introduction. Thanks for everybody that's joining us today. It feels as though we're meeting with you quite often now, but we're thrilled to be able to do the presentation today regarding the announcement yesterday on the acquisition of Pioneer Healthcare. Lisa and I have got some details to go through with you, and obviously, as already said, there is an opportunity for you to ask questions. So without further ado, we've already said you've got myself and Lisa. We'll talk about Pioneer. So Pioneer Healthcare are an established independent provider of specialist NHS secondary care services. You will have seen some of the details in the RNS yesterday. The three main shareholders that have come across to us have accepted, and actually were very eager to take a 20% equity stake in Totally, and again we've got lock-in arrangements for that. The three principals have taken on the role of joint managing director, and Professor Godbolet has also taken on the additional role of medical director for us, and we'll talk a little bit about that in more detail as we go through. The acquisition in itself is immediately earnings enhancing. They also specialise not only in insourcing services, which are complementary to our existing Totally Healthcare business, but they also provide outsourcing services and have the status of any qualified provider. And we will talk a little bit about that as we go through the presentation. But it opens up some bigger and more far-reaching opportunities for us within the Totally group, which is obviously a major advantage. They also have access to a substantial network of staff, and a lot of that is dictated by the fact that the three principals remain as very senior clinicians with the NHS and working in Sheffield, and therefore their networks across the whole of the country remain very intact and are very, very useful when you're actually trying to identify staff to work with you in a different way, and especially clearing down waiting lists. So a lot more information about that as we go through. But for now, I'll hand over to Lisa for the financial overview.
Thanks, Wendy. Hi, everybody. So another exciting acquisition by Totally. We think we've bought an excellent business at a fair price. And this is a business that's growing significantly with a pipeline of opportunities. So we've agreed total consideration up to 13 million. That's on a cash and debt-free basis, of which 80% is cash from our existing resources. We have the RCF in place now, of course, but we're not using that. This is the money that we obviously have ourselves. So no debt, no increase in debt. We have agreed 4.9 million shares being issued at 32.5p with a 12-month lock-in. So encourage the vendors taking a good stake in Totally. So 20% of the total consideration. That includes the additional payment for the cash net of indebtedness and with the working capital requirement in there. That was a total of 1.1 million on top of the 13 million. So we've paid 6.9 million up front, and then 6.1 million up to 6.1 million will be paid after the performance of this year. Quite a short period, some might say. We're really keen to just crack on and work with these gentlemen. There's so much to do. We want to integrate quickly and unlock further opportunities. So the integration, Wendy will talk about a bit more in a moment, but we really didn't see the need to look at earnings that were going into FY23. We want to work together and bring our two businesses together. It is the higher end of margins for our businesses. lots of opportunity, different specialties. So we're really excited. Working capital is also positive, which is driven by billing occurring after activity reconciliation, which is slightly different to what I've explained before for our urgent care business. So financials for last year, revenue of 5 million, PBT of 800,000, and there's gross assets of 2.8 million. No fixed assets to speak of. This is very much working capital. So yeah, exciting times. We've got a lot of growth ahead of us, and yes, we just want to get on with it. Very, very positive about the outlook for this year to 22. So bringing us lots more to look forward to in FY23. I'll hand back to Wendy now to tell you a little bit more about Pioneer.
Okay, thanks, Lisa. So about Pioneer Healthcare, independent provider, as I've already said, of secondary care services, led by 3 highly regarded senior NHS consultants. It was established back in 2007, delivers insourcing and outsourcing services across a wide range of surgical and medical specialties. And what you will particularly note is where we are now in that care pathway. Pioneer have done lots more activity at the high acuity end of specialties, whereas you will see that our existing business, Totally Healthcare, tends to be at the lower end of the acuity spectrum. So what we'll see is that highly complementary when we bring those businesses together, and massive opportunities for growth. So they hold contracts with NHS Foundation Trusts and clinical commissioning groups, predominantly across the north of England. But that's been a little bit around the, where they're able to get to quickly and how they're growing their reputation. The contracts that they've got in place, they've held for a number of years. Obviously, they're growing quickly with the current waiting list situation, but they do have really good contracts and customers stay with them. Strong reputation evidenced by the difficult to acquire any qualified provider status, enabling services to be offered direct to NHS patients across England, free at the point of delivery. And you can understand that the demand for that at the moment is very, very high. So they also have positions on the in-source clinical services framework and the outsourced clinical services framework. So ideally positioned now to take advantage of what we know is the massive demand for services and the backlog that's sitting there of patients waiting on waiting lists. So talking a little bit more about the senior leadership, when we first met these guys, it's always when you're trying to build a relationship with people, when you're buying the businesses, it's, why are you selling it? What's your ethos about how you want to develop your business? And I can honestly say there was a immediate fix and contrast in terms of the way that they go about their business and what their ideas are around quality. So our background in working in the NHS, and certainly mine, these 3 individuals are very well known. So you have Hesham and John, who focus on neurosurgery. They're neurosurgeons by background, paediatric neurosurgery, and then you've got Prasad, who is also helping us with the medical director role as well, but he works in paediatric urology. He also is the deputy medical director at Sheffield Children's Hospital. So the actual confidence that we have in these individuals and their reputations should not be underestimated. And I think we are very, very privileged to bring them in. You know that I talk lots and lots and lots about delivering high quality service, and our quality will certainly not be compromised in any way by bringing Pioneer in. And in fact, I'm hoping that it enhances it a little bit with that experience. They are eager to go. They want to not only contribute to Pioneer, but they're already talking to us about how they can help us with the extra continual growth across Totally Group. How can they help the rest of the group? How can they help us with medical leadership and all the things that that we can do together to further enhance across Totally Group. So we will update people as and when we move on that, but obviously the first step is to integrate Totally Healthcare into Pioneer under that leadership team and get moving. So background and rationale, I don't think there's any surprises in here. We've been talking to you about the market opportunity, the growing market for insourcing and outsourcing services. So the NHS is set to receive the bulk of a 36 billion health and social care funding package to address the growing backlog on the waiting list position. There is continued growth in waiting lists, and that's expected in the short term, with more than 10 million waiting for elective care by 2024. And just to remind you that those stats, when we quote them, are just published by NHS England. So there are also the other areas that we're already working in across the UK and the Republic of Ireland, of which we will continue to do so. So the opportunity is massive. Benefits: it creates a platform for future growth, significant opportunities to expand. Pioneer's AQP status, which means that patients can directly access their services via the choose and book system. So they will not only just do the operations on people, but we will manage that through from outpatients, initial outpatients, taking it through into surgery, and then back onto the discharge of that patient. So that's where it is a little bit different. Highly respected senior leadership that we've already talked about, and access to an extensive availability of consultants and theatre staff. Talked a little bit about quality, which you would already you'd expect from me, but it really is how you build your reputation as a really good partner for the NHS. So Pioneer are already CQC registered with their AQP status. We are expecting insourcing services to have to move into a CQC registration status. So we're all ready for that, and we've got the background of that, so we'll be ready to go. Listed on all the frameworks, and they have agreements with public and private healthcare facilities. So that's the difference between Totally Healthcare and Pioneer. Totally Healthcare go in and use the capacity within the NHS. What Pioneer also have is agreements with a couple of private facilities that if the NHS haven't got that capacity, they will bring NHS patients into private facility. They will treat them as NHS patients. It will all work the same as the NHS, but they will be renting facilities from private healthcare as in an outsourcing solution. So not stopped by the NHS tightening down on capacity. So scalability, all of the internal frameworks are in place. We know that by rolling in Totally Healthcare into Pioneer, that will create a single provider. Everyone's really excited about that. Our staff are excited about that. Totally back office, we've made sure that as we've gone through the acquisition process that we're positioned for expanding back office function. So we will be integrating Pioneer's back office to ensure that not only those services are improved, but also it leads to operational efficiencies. And we've got those established operational processes, so we can do that quite quickly. And I touched on complementary specialties, which provide further opportunities to expand. So we're very excited about it and very hopeful that not only will 2022 deliver some good results for you, but the further expansion leading through into full year 23 is a very exciting prospect for us. So a quick canter through. If you've got any questions, we would be more than happy to take those questions now.
That's great. Wendy, Lisa, thank you very much indeed for updating investors this morning. Ladies and gentlemen, please do continue to submit your questions using the Q&A tab situated on the right-hand corner of your screen. But just while Wendy and Lisa take a few moments to review the investor questions submitted already, I'd like to remind you that a recording of this presentation, along with a copy of the slides and the published Q&A, can be accessed via your Investor Meet Company dashboard. Wendy, Lisa, obviously investors have submitted a number of questions through your presentation this morning. And perhaps if I may just hand back to you, and if I could ask you to read out the questions and give a response where it's appropriate to do so, and I'll pick up from you at the end.
Okay, thank you very much. Lisa, I'll take them and then I'll bring you in on the questions that are more for you. So I'll try and work down them in order. So Simon C. The question is, a great acquisition. How long was the acquisition process from finding to announcing the transaction this week? Was the process competitive, and why Totally over other potential buyers? I can tell you that from my perspective, of course. Whenever you go through a process, there is certain information you don't receive. Bamba Capital, you'll have already seen it on social media, bought the acquisition opportunity to us back in, I think it was around October time last year, when we received the IM and started looking. Obviously, we'd made it very clear that we were acquisitive and we were continuing with our buy and build strategy. And the reason that we were really interested in this is we were managing a few acquisitions at that time. We'd actually got 3 bought to us at the same time, which is a great position to be in. But you can imagine it's quite demanding, as well as coming out of the pandemic and being told that we've got another variant on COVID-19. It's quite difficult to remember all the timescales, but it was just as Omicron was raising its head. So it was around October. We were already working on the acquisition of Energy Fitness Professionals that we announced in December. So Bamba bought it to us. I am sure they were talking to a number of potential buyers. We signed heads of terms, I believe it was the 16th of December, and whilst I'm not great at dates, the reason I remember that is because it was the day after we completed and announced the acquisition of Energy Fitness Professionals, so there was no gap. And we targeted the end of February, early March for completion, because we wanted to get on with this. When you speak to the 3 principals and you ask them why Totally, I think it was a coming together of minds in terms of the way that we run our business. What are the important elements for that? And the 3 principals also absolutely saw and see the potential for the growth across the group and how they can contribute to that. So in the presentation, I mentioned that we're already looking at how they can help us with that growth, and I believe they will. So no, it's I think a meeting of minds. They trusted us, they saw what we'd done before, and they also are very well aware of the reputation that we've got within the NHS. So I think that's the reason. Okay, we've got a few more questions coming in now. So what is your Michael D, sorry, what is your view on future acquisitions? Should we expect more through the rest of this year? Well, given that our financial year ends at the end of March, I can conclusively tell you that we won't be announcing another acquisition before that. In terms of the calendar year, never say never, but I think that we have a duty to our investors and shareholders now to make sure that we integrate the 2 businesses properly within the Totally group, and that we make sure that we bring about the opportunities and deliver those opportunities. So whilst I think we will always stay in the market for interesting businesses, I think right now our focus has to be on integration and organic growth. Kane S, so can you share the Ebitda of the business? What we are bound by is the rules of AIM, and at the moment we have released what we can release within the RNS, but obviously we're not far away from the year end. So when we can actually give you more detailed financial information, we will, and we will break down that part of the business. What Lisa's already confirmed is that these Pioneer and Totally Healthcare do operate at the higher margin part of the business. Lisa, do you want to add anything to that before I just move away?
Yeah, just one small detail, which, well, it looks like a small detail. It's quite a big one, I suppose. But there, I did mention that they have no fixed assets. So there's depreciation is minor. So, you know, the RNS, we've provided the profit before tax, Ebitda's, you know, one level above that before depreciation, amortization, of course, and they don't have any. So.
Yeah, before I move off that question, the second bit was, are you expecting any significant synergies to be delivered? I don't think there are significant synergies, how I would describe significant, but there are synergies. So obviously we will be bringing the back office together in terms of financial services, HR processes, IT, marketing, comms. But I think what you will see from this business is that there is a high growth potential. So obviously we will be investing in that as they grow, to make sure that everything is put in place to ensure that delivery. And again, we will update the market as and when we can. So I think that's the simple answer. It's very difficult to quantify significant, isn't it? There are some. So Michael P, great informative presentation. 3 questions. How did the purchase of Pioneer originate? Well, I think I've already answered that one in the fact that this was bought to us by Bamba Capital. What are expectations of board on how the purchase will impact FY22 and beyond? We've only got a few days left of FY22, so it won't impact us significantly. We both work on a 31st of March year end, so that won't be significant. But beyond that, then we've already said that this is immediately earnings enhancing, and we will be providing more information on that when we get to our end of year reporting. So you will see that coming through. Last, and on that question, are Totally still reviewing more acquisitions? I think I've already answered that. I think for the time being, we do need to focus on integration, but never say never. If interesting business come over our desk, then it is our obligation to shareholders to look at those with all seriousness, but we also do need to ensure that when we acquire businesses, we integrate them properly. Graham F, what will the branding of Pioneer Totally Healthcare be going forward? Will Pioneer and Totally Healthcare retain their own branding, or will the services provided come under a single banner? Obviously, this is a point of interest now for our internal teams. When you're going through an acquisition like this, you only have a small number of insiders, so the vast majority of our staff only became aware of this when we announced it yesterday. We have agreed in principle that we will integrate Totally Healthcare into the Pioneer Healthcare branding. So you will see some changes. And the reason we've done that is for ease more than anything else. And we do have absolute faith in the Pioneer brand. And so our thinking is at the moment that will probably come under a single banner. We haven't got a timescale for that, but again, we will update you on that as we progress with the work that is just beginning. Malene, hi Malene. Malene R, will your head of insourcing be remaining with the business? I'm not quite sure who you're referring to, but we are not looking to lose any staff. As I say, this is a high growth area, so we're all about expansion and building. And what I've always used, and I've used with the staff recently, we will be looking to take the best from both businesses, and then we will bring that into one. The new integrated business will be headed by the 3 main principals from Pioneer that I've already talked about. So Mr. Hesham Zaki, Mr. John McMullen, and Professor Prasad Godbole. So they are the joint managing directors. JB, hi, do you have an investor communication email process, and how do you sign up to it? Great to watch the presentations, really interesting to see how you're operating. So we, a few months ago, created a new role internally to Totally, and we brought in our Director of Communications and Marketing, a lady named Holly Smart, who I'm sure will be sitting on this presentation and will give me feedback, but Holly is completely reviewing the way that we interface with investors and how we keep you up to speed. So we will be issuing some things that we are changing. So at the moment, we don't have that email communication process, but it is within our plans. So watch this space, keep an eye on our websites. Our websites are all changing as well as we go through and update all of those. So if you just keep an eye on that, you'll be updated shortly. Chris G, how is the earnout structured, and how much of the deferred consideration would you expect to pay in a mid-case scenario? Okay, so the earnout structured, Lisa's already told you that we paid the initial consideration. And then once we go through the FY22 4-year results and we get the consolidated audited accounts, we will be paying up to the cap on a maximum consideration of 13 million. So where we are right now, I'm expecting Pioneer to get very, very close to that cap, if not meet that cap. So I don't think that we are, I think from what we've seen already, you can expect us to get close to that. And I don't think it would be a mid-case scenario. Obviously, it's not there until the fat lady sings. We don't know until we get over to that year-end scenario. But that's where we are now. We are assuming a very close to the 13 million cap. Jonathan B, apologies if this was covered earlier, but missed most of the presentation. Why did you decide to acquire with a combination of shares and cash rather than fully in cash? Okay, so I think generally investors like to see that people coming into the business will take part of their consideration in shares to show that they are absolutely signed into the growth of the group. And certainly in this case, the three principals were very eager to do so. So we would also always try and encourage a share of cash and equity. And I certainly think that it is a positive thing that demonstrates their belief, not only in where we are now, but also, you know, where they believe the group can get to. So I hope that you see that as a positive, because we certainly do. And there is a lock-in around those shares. So there is a 12-month hard lock-in where no shares can be traded, and then a further 12 months of an orderly market. So again, we see that as very positive. They will also be PDMRs. You know, again, people who are discharging managerial responsibility under the MAR and AIM regulations. And again, I just think it shows their commitment to the group. So Graham B, one of Pioneer's existing joint managing directors is listed as JMG of the new business.
Yeah, joint managing director of the new.
Okay, so will a member of Totally Personnel be the other? Yeah, so the way that this works is Lisa and I become directors of Pioneer, and then obviously the existing directors at Pioneer resign. You'll see all that happen when we get the shares allocated by AIM, which we hope to be all over the week. So if you bear with us until the further announcements towards the end of the week, then I think that will all make sense. Genju J, why is the directors currently hold less than 1%? I'm assuming that means the directors of the Totally board across the Totally group. What you will see from that, so if you were to go back into the history of Totally, when Bob Holt came on board back in 2016, you will see that at that stage we had many more shares, and our holding was much more. But we came in right at the beginning, and I can talk for myself when I say back in 2016 I invested a substantial amount in the company, but obviously every time that we've acquired or raised money we have been hit by the dilute. So that is why it is sitting there at less than 1% with the continual dilute. You do see that we do buy shares, and as and when we can, we will. But obviously, each of us have different outgoings and different circumstances. But certainly, if you go back over the years, you will see that holding was much larger than the 1% is, and it's purely because of the amount of cash we've raised, the amount of acquisitions that we've done. We've been at the front line of that dilute. Graham B, do you have a fail-safe mechanism for separating out the Totally input into the new business from the existing Pioneer operations from the earnout payment? Yes, we absolutely do, and it will not be a difficult one for us, because obviously the earnout period ends FY22, so we've only got a few weeks to go on that. And yes, we have those established systems. We've done it before. We've done it with previous earnouts for the businesses, tried and tested, and yes, so you've got nothing to worry about there. Jonathan B, I think that's a thank you to us, so very helpful answer, and yes, very positive. Thank you. Thanks for that. JB, do you have a share safe process for your direct employees? We used to have this at my employer and it was very motivational for all of us. So yes, we do. We have a Save as You Earn program, which is open to all of our employees. We open that up annually. It's normally around the end of the calendar year. And yeah, staff do contribute to that, and so do the directors. And yes, we do see it as a good incentive and one of the benefits of working for an AIM listed company, of course. Yeah, I think I've answered that one. Alpa P, would currently totally shareholders be diluted? Yes, there will be a small dilution as those shares come into issue. So 20% of that, the overall cap on the acquisition, it will lead to a small dilution. I think what you'll find is it's really, really worth it given what the quality of the business is and where we see the growth of this business. So I hope that you will see that as a short-term negative for a much bigger.
Wendy, Lisa, thank you very much indeed. I think you've taken every single question from investors, so thank you to all of those that have submitted questions this morning and for your engagement. Wendy, I'm shortly going to redirect investors to provide you with their thoughts and expectations via their feedback, and I know that's particularly important to you. But before doing so, if I may, if I could just ask you for a few closing comments.
Yes, of course. I mean, I'd just like to say thank you to everyone attending today and to the wider audience of our investors. The reason that we're able to continue to do the exciting things that Totally are doing is because we do have your support and we really do value that. So thank you very much. If you are half as excited about the opportunities that Pioneer Healthcare bring to us as we are, you will see that this is going to make a real difference to the business. So thank you very much for today, but also thank you for your continued support.
That's great. Wendy, Lisa, thank you once again for updating investors this morning. Can I please ask investors not to close this session, as we'll now automatically redirect you for the opportunity to provide your feedback in order that the management team can better understand your views and expectations. This may take a few moments to complete, but I'm sure will be greatly valued by the company. On behalf of the management team of Totally PLC, we'd like to thank you for attending today's presentation. Good morning to you all.